Hey, welcome back to the channel. I'm Steve, your host. And in this episode, we are going to be weathering our DML Panzer III. Had some problems with some new oils. It was self-inflicted. I can show you how to recover from it. Panzer III is looking pretty good. You guys enjoy the video, and I hope you guys have a great day. All right then. Thank you. Okay, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to show you how I do my weathering on the Panzer III from DML. One of the things I want to stress before we get going here is the oils I had been using for my weathering techniques had been 20 years old, and they were really at the perfect set of dryness. Just with oils, what you really need to do is you need to get them out on squeeze out a little bit on some cardboard and let the linseed oil just kind of leach out of them. If you do that for a half hour or so, I think that'll help you out. What happened is I didn't do that, and that created a lot more work for me. But in the end, we got there. So what I'm doing now is I've got the raw umber mixed with a little bit of mineral spirits. And I'm just doing highlighting, really, not really highlighting, but doing the shading around things in the corners, in recesses and things like this. If you've watched my video series in the past, you'll see that I've done this. So what I'll do is I'll just let this play out for you, and there'll be a bit of music just to keep your interest going. And I'll chirp in as needed. And we're going to do the same here with the turret. The other thing that you want to do is once you get this applied, you just want to walk away for about 10 or 15 minutes, and that way the mineral spirits really help the oil just to kind of dry out. I don't know if it ever really does dry out in those 10 or 15 minutes, but it makes it easier. It stays in place, and you can push it back into the recesses in the corners of the kit. I've taken the cupola off just so I can work around the shadows there. You can see there are still some components that aren't on the vehicle. I'm going to do those separately just so I don't knock them off. I've got the vehicle, I've got decals on the vehicle. I like to put them on before I start the weathering process. That way there's a continuity with it. So now what we're going to start to do is what I've done was because this was pretty dark. Tamiya's XF59 is a pretty dark yellow. Normally I use Naples yellow to start with and do the highlights in white. This time I'm just going to go with the white. So I'm gonna lay out my dots, and again, less is more. You're going to see here, because of the way I didn't prep the oils correctly, the new oils, I created a bit of problem where it just ended up being too dark, and I spent a lot of time just trying to lighten it. So, like I said, if you let that linseed leach out, you'll save yourself a lot of problems. And my assumption for vehicles in the African desert, especially ones that had been there for a while, they are going to get bleached in the sunlight. Unfortunately, there's only black and white pictures and color plates in drawings from North Africa. So what I want to do is I'm going to go with the assumption that these vehicles got bleached in the sunlight. And you can kind of see up there in the turret ring what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm making brown is what I'm doing, and it's gonna take me a little bit to fix that, but eventually I was pretty happy with the way this came out. And you can see the real color difference between what we're doing with the oils and the XF59. So on the upper hull, especially the rear engine deck and around the turret ring, you can certainly see the color has changed. But it's got a brown tinge to it, and again, that's because, like I said, because of the way I prep the oil. So I'm just going to try to lighten that. And just as a reminder, I leave off small pieces when I do this, because invariably with the stippling you're going to end up knocking pieces off. So you just want to be careful. And you can see the way around the turret ring and the rear deck, the difference in the color, where in and around the turret ring I'm getting the effect that I want, but if you look at the rear deck, it's still a bit brown. I guess, I don't know, the louver covers, I'll call them. The louver covers are starting to come along. So, and I think now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save this with a bit of Naples yellow. So we're going to do some more work on the rear deck. Some of the louvers near the rear of the vehicle. Come back with a little bit more Naples yellow. Just see if we can kind of lighten it up a bit. It's starting to work. Normally, this method, what I try to do is, what happened here is I'm actually covering the paint. And normally with my method, I don't do that. I just kind of put a patina on the paint. But what had happened was, because of what happened, I ended up painting the whole vehicle in stippled oil, which isn't my intention. It came out nice. I was happy with the end result, but it really, just be careful when you do this. A little goes a long way. Start small. And just work it in there. The other thing I look for in you've got U.S. vehicles or early German stuff. They're all one color. In the desert, you know, I've seen in modeling magazines and on box art cover, I've seen two-tone camouflage for North Africa, but really, other than the Tigers that got there in Tunisia in '43. I really haven't seen a lot of two-tone camo, so a lot of these vehicles were just a single color, a desert sand if you're in North Africa, or olive drab if you're American, Panzer gray. What you want to do with this method is just give it a bit of tonal variation, as opposed to what we're doing here, which is actually repainting the model in oils. So really, this method, you just want to introduce just a bit of tonal variation, because in 1/1 scale, a single color vehicle looks fine, but in a 35 scale model, it looks very toy-like if it's just a single color without any kind of variation. So I'm back to the yellow. I'm still trying to get it where I want it, and again, your mileage may vary on how you like it, but you can add to this. It's easier to add to it, so start small and get it in the color that you want. And you can see the difference now between the upper hull, and now I'm working on the front part, the bow, and these hatches. If somebody in the comments, are these hatches, the hatches on the bow here that we're working with right now, are they for maintenance access or crew access? Because it's hard for me to tell. I never really see those open to where I can actually see what's inside, and occasionally you'll see a modeler put a figure in there, and I just don't know if that's correct or not. The other thing you want to do is, now that you're working on the fenders, just be careful how much pressure you apply to the fenders, because you could end up knocking those off, or just moving them out of position, or bending them if they're photo etched. These are the kit fenders. I thought they were excellent. Overall, I mean, and I've said this before, the instructions for this kit really let it down. As far as fit, I think it's an excellent kit. No fit problems at all. Comes with a bit of photo etch. I think in the end, the only photo etch I'm really going to use is the photo etch for the grills over the, I'm going to call them the air intakes on the side of the hull near the rear. One of the interesting things about the Panzer III and the L-42, it appears that Hitler at some point wanted the L-60, the longer gun on the Panzer III, but the staff of the Armaments Ministry, they went with the L-42, thinking that was going to be enough. And apparently, I looked this up on ChatGPT. Apparently, there was issues with the mounting system when using the L-60. They just thought the L-42 was enough. It would be more durable. But in the end, they ended up going with the L-60, and the L-60 really was probably a better choice, as far as dealing with the T-34. I don't know if you could really deal with the Russian heavies with the L-60, like the KV-1 or 2, but certainly I think with the right ammunition, you were pretty competitive against the T-34. It also seems somewhat suicidal to cross Hitler in the whole thing, but I guess they got away with it. I didn't hear of anybody being executed or fired for not putting the L-60 on, but that seems like that was a pretty bold choice to cross Hitler on that. The other thing I looked up, and again this is off of ChatGPT, I was always curious about, you had the PaK-38, which was the 50 millimeter anti-tank gun, and you had the L-42 gun, and you had the L-60 gun, and according to ChatGPT, the ammunition was the same, which supply-wise, which is good, but somehow, again, let me know in the comments if you've got an actual real source that confirmed that the ammunition was the same. because it also said that when the Panzer IV went to L43 and then the L48, that the ammunition was the same for the PaK-40 with the L46 7-point cm ammunition. But I had heard that the ammunition for the L46 was longer. So it just seems to me that you'd certainly want all your 7.5 millimeter, 7 cm ammunition and your 5C ammunition to be interchangeable. Certainly the ammunition, 7.5 cm was not interchangeable between the L43, the L46, and the L48, and the Panther's L70. But I guess that's another story. It really is logistics wins wars. And I think that's why the Americans made the right decision sticking with the Sherman. It was good enough, and it was there when you needed it, and that's just as important as having the greatest tank in the world. If it's not there, and it's not there in numbers, it's really indifferent. It's insignificant. So now we're working on the turret. You can see the brightly colored number 2 on the side. I've got the 2 on the turret bin, along with an Afrikakorps symbol. The Afrikakorps symbol is 2 pieces. There's a tiny little piece to complete the swastika on the palm tree. I knew I was going to be weathering with it. I just didn't bother with it because my eyes just aren't. I would lose that in the water while trying to apply that decal. So I just I didn't bother. And really, once the weathering's done, you can't see it. It's funny, in America you can get these, well actually I got this in America, but I've had some Tamiya kits that I've bought here where the Afrikakorps symbol is completely cut out because it's got the swastika on it, whereas in America you get the regular decal sheet. I don't know, I guess they want to be able to sell these in Germany and without too much fuss. So in Germany, it's illegal to display these symbols. So here we are working on the back of the turret bin, and just applying the same methods. And again, I start off because like I said, it's more brown than I wanted it to be, so I'm just gonna work in white, work in a bit of desert yellow, just to get it where I want it to be. And what I'm going to do is I am going to paint the tools offline. In other videos you've seen me paint tools, and I'm going to spray paint the hatches and things I haven't put on yet, and work on the figure for it, because this project's running a bit long, and I just want to get this guy done. And I'll leave some links into where I painted tools and things like that for you to see. And again, when you do this, you don't want any solvent on the brush. You want your brush dry, and really what you're doing is you're just grinding this in, so be careful about how much pressure you apply, so you don't knock anything off and create more work for yourself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop the turret on, make sure I've got the a bit of continuity for the colors. Hans is going to play us out, and you guys enjoy the day.